Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid. A channel I'm creating not only to just bring awareness and understanding of the lived reality complex trauma creates, but I really want to delve into the mechanisms and the understandings that I believe are really helpful in helping not only you guys to understand what's going on, but also to develop ways and to incorporate what you have access to create a path of healing. Now, as the last few videos have been around attachment, and I want to continue this forward because attachment is at the very center of everything we are and how we engage with the world. And attachment is at the very center of our trauma responses, but also how we heal from trauma. So I want to get a little deeper into the understandings of what attachment actually is and how I truly believe that it isn't it's a living ecology, it's a living process. It's a part of us that evolves and engages every facet of our physiology, especially in its development. Now, as I've said in previous videos, attachment begins in the womb, connecting to your mom. And whatever she experiences crosses the placenta and shapes many facets of your development, including your attachment and how important those initial first moments are going to be when you come out of your mother, when you're born. Because if your mother's in a highly stressed state, though all those hormones cross the placenta, you are being prepared to be born into a hostile environment. Things happen fast. You develop to need to have a stronger assurance of connection. Because in reality, when we're born, we fundamentally answer two questions within the first few seconds or minutes post-birth. As soon as the oxygen hits our lungs, as soon as we actually start breathing in an air environment, and all the synapses in the brain start to fire up and all these things start happening, the foundation that all these developmental processes, these critical developmental processes run on, are on two very simple questions. One, am I safe? And two, do I belong? Everything comes from that. So those out in the mental health field that don't value attachment and don't value its importance to the degree that it needs to be, think of that moment. That base runs everything forward from that point. Because if we are not safe and if we don't belong, if we don't do the latch on, belly crawl, and all the secure attachment process to our biological mother, it can only happen to our biological mother. There's pheromonal integrations and neurological connections that she is set up because of going through childbirth and carrying you, and because of the same genetics. And you were set up because you've gone through childbirth and so forth. A woman who didn't go through that, such as in the placement for adoption and so forth, you cannot attach that way and you cannot appease that attachment that way. And if you follow or listen to the adoption side of this channel, I go into a lot more detail around this, and I will do in future videos. But from that very first standpoint, those connections, that belly crawl, latch on, first feeding, all of that is defining, am I safe? Do I belong? If those two questions are not answered satisfactorily, the body goes through a developmental process of survival. Now, when you look at attachment theory, there are many, many ways of viewing it, and there are many, many terms and types and everything. But from my perspective, the way I look at attachment, we have an attachment for survival, or we have an attachment because we belong. There are really only two, and there are all these different variations within those two sides, those two camps. If we're attached to belong, we have security. We know we can explore, we can experiment, we can try. We know we're safe, we can process when things happen. If we are in a survival attachment, everything we experience and everything we set out to do feeds the betterment of our survival state. And that includes our relationships, friendships, and everything from there. Because at birth, the attachment to our mother is so critical, and that base is formed from that, from the pregnancy and from those moments post-birth. Every time we look at answering those questions in the first few minutes, hours, weeks, and months, we're creating more and more layers of affirming that initial assessment, that initial interpretation or perception that's created of am I safe or am I not? Do I belong or do I not? And each layer engages our body. And our developmental component side of all of this, the synapses in our brain fire all these neurological pathways, all these things happen. Structures of our brain develop in specific ways due to how we attach, how we are safe, and how we belong. So when we're trying to heal attachment trauma, talking doesn't do it. And I've said that in numerous videos. You cannot talk yourself to attach. You've got all these layers to process that can only be processed through experience. And in the next couple of videos, I'll go into a little bit more detail in this. But I really want you guys to understand how much of a living ecology attachment is, and just how much of your body is involved in this process. And if it's developed to attach to survive, to improve our survival, which sadly in our modern world, especially in the Western world, that is more common than not. There are more survival attachment structures than there are safe. And that is just the reality of how our systems and hospitals are, the state of our society, and how women are not in the secure positions that they should be when they're conceiving and pregnant and so forth and so forth. All of this creates a structure that only experiencing a different perspective, experiencing attachment in a positive sense, and learning and developing all those different ways of assessing that will alter how our body perceives connection. So when you think about your attachment and how you connect to people, every experience we have, fundamentally, we're still trying to answer those questions of am I safe and do I belong? The obstacles, where the different components of our connections to our biological mother and to our close biological family at birth and around those first few weeks, those blocks, what didn't happen, are the same blocks that when we look at people to connect to now, especially in a romantic or close friendship sense, that's the same assessment we're trying to get them to understand to actually heal it for us. So our body is forever trying to answer those questions of am I safe and do I belong? So really, really get your head around how important connection is. And it's something that cannot be forced. It's something that cannot be artificially created. It's something that needs to be developed. The same way we would connect to our biological family and family and greater family and friends and so forth in our early childhood is the same way we need to develop those connections in an adult life. Really challenging, especially if you're estranged from your biological family. And I'll get to the reasons why in the next video, but primarily it's around the vocal tone and the facial structure. There's all these subconscious neurological things that assess being part of, that are part of healing attachment. And in the next video, I'll also go into why it is so hard to heal and why so many ways or therapies fall down. Because, not because the therapies are wrong as such, but because of the ecology. If we want to heal attachment, we need to have a supportive environment around us the majority of the time. And there is the challenge. But in this video, I just really want to stress attachment is a living process. Attachment is an ecology of all of your physiology. And attachment comes from the base of answering those two questions. Am I safe and do I belong in the moments post-birth, in the womb, and it gets reinforced over the first few weeks and months and years of your life. Really look at that and get a good firm picture of what decisions or how you would have interpreted that. Not in an adult intellectualized format, in an instinctual, truly felt sense, infant and young child's perspective. And with that, you will understand the base core of your connection. And you can start to understand why the things happen the way they do. But also how you can start to bring things in to support healing that. As always, I love your guys' comment and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe. And I'll see you all next time.